How's it going, guys? Cameron here with Canadian Gamer, back at you with yet another video. Now, today's topic, it's going to be exciting for some. Others may want to skip over this video. I understand it may not be for everybody, as this is primarily a video game channel. But a buddy of mine recently, he did a video talking about some of his recent pickups, which included some comic books. So I wanted to sort of talk about my experience growing up with comics, and maybe leave it open for discussion in the comments below towards the end of the video. Now, the thing is being a child of the 80s and more so the 90s, you got to remember, for those of you who maybe weren't around back then, towards the early 90s, there was a huge sort of like, they call it like a speculative market, where a lot of people were buying things, hoping that they would turn into, a profit down the road. Now, hockey cards, that's maybe a conversation we can get into another day. I still have all of my hockey and baseball and basketball and football cards packed away. There might be some that are worth money. I don't know. I'd have to go through the binders individually and sort of figure that stuff out. But card collecting was, one of the phenoms in the late 80s and the early 90s. And so was comic book collecting. So it's really interesting because I can remember in the early 90s going to the shopping mall in Niagara Falls, and they'd always have comic book stores and booths set up, and me and my father would always go and pick up hockey cards and comic books. And around 93, 94, I could be off on the year, that was the year that we got this comic here, which I'm about to show you. I'm going to show you just a small little bit of my modest collection here, and if you guys enjoy this video, let me know. I can certainly show off some more of my comics. I don't have a huge collection, but so in 93, 94, this was like all the rage. Here it is, still sealed. I'm sure a lot of you guys know what this is. It's basically Superman's Dead. So this was like the biggest comic of like a long time when this came out. It was like the biggest thing. Everybody and their mother went out and bought this. They bought multiple copies of it. There's several variants of it, and a lot of people kept it sealed. You go on to eBay as an example, and these aren't relatively expensive to purchase. And this comic here is, the main reason why there was a huge, basically dip in the market. Everybody was, again, not really into comics. They were going out and buying this purely speculative, hoping that this would turn a profit. Oh my God, Superman's dead. And this basically crashed the comic book industry single-handedly. It's crazy too. It's got the white sleeve. A lot of card cases, they came in plastic sleeves, kind of like this. You could, if you were smart, when you bought the comic at the convenience store, you could kind of put it up to the light and see what variant you had. I also have the follow-up here, Back from the Dead. So I think it might have been the second issue in the series. I'm not quite sure. Superman's Dead. It's like a little mini series. So yeah, that pretty much crashed the comic book craze. And then from there on out, like I said, we have heaps. There's people out there that have heaps of collections that are worth nothing. So comic book collecting, it's difficult because it's like anything else. You can go out and buy 20 or 30 comics, which I did recently a couple of years ago. You put them away and they could be worth peanuts 50 years from now, or you might have one or two that might shoot up in price. So it's a crazy topic. I can't really go into it too much here for the sake of time, but I know another huge enterprise in the early 90s was Spawn. Todd McFarlane, he had a huge toy line, movies, television shows, cartoons, comics. Spawn was a big one as well. So again, I collected a lot of comics, not to read them, although I did appreciate the artwork, but it was just more speculative, like a lot of people back then, and I kept my comics. And then I want to say about maybe 6 or 7 years ago, just for the hell of it, I started going to the comic book store up in Ottawa, Canada, and I started purchasing comics again selectively, just pure speculative, to put them away to see it just as an experiment. I want to see, you know, once I'm in my 50s or 60s, and then price these out, you know, see if any of them are worth any money. I don't purchase comics anymore. If I go to the comic book store, if I'm around it and I'm in the area, I might pop in and purchase one or two, but that's about it. And a lot of them too, it's like there's a grading aspect to it. You know, if you want your comics to be worth anything, they pretty much have to be absolutely pristine. If you're purchasing them from the comic book store, it's likely somebody may have already, you know, ruffled through the pages, and even something as minuscule as a small little crease on a page or the cover could actually affect the resale value. A lot of times you'd put it in a plastic sleeve like this, and then you'd have a cardboard piece that would go in the back to keep the comic, you know, straight. And you know, because if you don't do that, they sort of curve over time and they get all messed up. So it's really a difficult hobby to get into, because like even this one here looks absolutely mint, but I can assure you if I got it graded, they would probably find some imperfections with it. So what I'll do, I'm going to go through this really quickly. I just want to show off some of the comics that I have, and then like I said, we'll open it up to discussion. So this one, again, I'm not quite sure what series this is from. This is an older one, and that's Scorpion Corps. The early 80s. Marvel Comics presents 4 all new features, so it's pretty old. It's a pretty old comic. Another old one here, the Marvel Saga. Another one here, price sticker on it, right on the actual comic, $1.75, the Marvel Saga. Here's one here, Millennium Week 3, Green Lantern, the Corpse. So this one's pretty cool. Pretty cool artwork on it. You can see on the back there's a TSR, Forgotten Realms. Kind of like a Dungeons and Dragons. Secret of the Legion of Superheroes. So this is another real old one too. The Young All-Stars. Wow, that is old. You can see how faded it is. Really old. That's got to be 80s for sure. So these are some of the newer comics that I picked up, like I said, several years ago. We have here issue number 1 of She-Hulk. Pretty cool. I got here Dexter issue number 1, Dexter Down Under. Yeah, there was a Dexter comic book line, as well as if you go to the bookstore, there's hardcover novels as well. Again, I very much like the artwork of this one, East of West, issue number 9. It was a fairly popular comic line. And this one, again, I love the artwork, and that's why I picked these ones up here. I think this one kind of died off after maybe 10 or 11 issues, and that's the Mercenary Sea. And this is the variant cover art of issue number 1. And this is the other issue number 1 cover art. It's kind of like a James Bond theme. I really like it. And then we have issue number 2. Really cool 60s Bond artwork. You can really see it. Issue number 3. I sort of stopped with this line after a while. Issue number 4. Pretty cool. And then this one here, Moon Knight, issue number 1. Lots of variants of this one as well. It's worth a few dollars. Moon Knight. Here's an oldie here. Judge Dredd, comic book number 3. Eagle Comics presents. This is probably one of the better comics I have in my collection. A lot of sentimental value. Just fantastic artwork on Judge Dredd. Of course, Judge Dredd became a popular film in the 90s there with Sylvester Stallone. Just incredible artwork front to back. Again, here's a newer one as well. One Hit Wonder. It says Hollywood on the front. Hollywood Killer. Really cool. Almost looks like Michael from Grand Theft Auto. Or maybe Chris Penn. So it's pretty cool. Zero, I picked this one up. I thought the cover art kind of looked like an ode to Smashing Pumpkins. A little bit of Nine Inch Nails industrial look to it. Pretty cool. And then this one here was a special anniversary issue. Might have been 50th anniversary of the Daredevil, so I picked that one up as well. Really cool. So yeah, you can see comic collecting, it's not for everyone. It takes up a lot of space too. And like I said, also you got to be careful with the temperature where you store your comics as well. I put mine in a safe. It's just like a cool, dark environment for the comics. And yeah, so like there are people out there that actually love to read comics, and they're not necessarily all about collecting them. And then we have the complete opposite as well. And then we have people that collect them and like to read them as well. You know, my advice would be, I'm sure if you look hard enough online, or if you have like an Amazon Kindle as an example, maybe there's an app where you can download comics and you can look at them digitally, and you can keep your hard copy stored away. But yeah, it's kind of cool. Like I said, if you could collect, you know, a nice chunk of comics selectively and do what I did, just put them away and just sort of as an experiment, just let them sit and then visit it, kind of like a time capsule, you know, 20 to 25 years from now, just to see if any of them have turned a coin. That's what I'm doing. I don't expect any of them to shoot up in value. I'm just doing it for fun. But yeah, you kind of have to be careful too, because obviously if you get closer to your 50s, you know, you're buying comics, and then what? You're going to wait for it to shoot up in value by the time you're 70? Like, at what point do you stop? But yeah, I just wanted to talk about it. Like I said, comics was a huge part of my life back in the early 90s, as I'm sure it was for a lot of you guys as well. And it's nice to see there's still a few comic book stores out there that you can go to buy physical comics as well. Who knows how long that will last. But yeah, that's all I want to talk about today. I just want to share a few of my comics here. Again, I know it's not for everybody, but I appreciate any of you guys that tuned in for this one. As always, guys, thanks so much for watching. Take care.